On a cold night in rural Bavaria in 1922, 6 members of a farming family vanished from their routines and left behind a mystery that would haunt Germany for over a century. This is not a well-publicized case, yet the details are among the most violent and tragic in criminal history. The story of the Hinterkaifeck murders unfolds on an isolated homestead and shows how a killer used cunning, brutality, and circumstance to carry out one of the most shocking farmstead massacres ever recorded. Hinterkaifeck was a small farmstead about 43 miles north of Munich. It consisted of a farmhouse, a barn, and outbuildings built in the mid-19th century and was surrounded by dense forests and fields. The property was home to the Gruber family, 63-year-old Andreas Gruber, his 72-year-old wife, Cecilia, their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, and Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph, along with a live-in maid. Andreas was known in the region for his harsh temperament. Neighbors later recalled that he disciplined family and farmhands with a scythe or pitchfork and locked his children in the cellar as punishment. Rumors also circulated about an incestuous relationship between Andreas and his daughter Victoria, and Joseph's paternity was unclear. These strained family dynamics created enemies inside and outside the household. Months before the murders, a series of unsettling incidents troubled the farm. In late 1921, the family's maid abruptly quit, telling friends she heard footsteps and strange noises in the attic and believed the house was haunted. Andreas downplayed her fears, but soon he too noticed oddities. A newspaper from Munich appeared on the property, even though no one subscribed. A house key went missing, and footsteps in fresh snow led from the nearby forest to a broken door lock in the machine room. When Andreas investigated noises in the attic, he found no intruder, and he declined his neighbors' offers to help or report the incidents to police. The eerie atmosphere persisted through March 1922, as if someone was watching the farm. On Friday, 31st March 1922, Andreas hired a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who arrived that afternoon. In the evening, as darkness fell across the farm, someone lured Andreas, his wife Victoria, and young Cecilia one by one into the barn through the stable. Once inside, the killer attacked each of them with a heavy mattock, an agricultural tool similar to a pickaxe, striking them on the head. The blows crushed skulls and left gaping wounds. After killing the 4 family members in the barn, the murderer returned to the living quarters. There he killed 2-year-old Joseph as he slept in his crib and murdered Maria Baumgartner in her bedroom using the same mattock. Within minutes, the entire household lay dead. Autopsies later revealed the gruesome nature of the attack. Court physician Johann Baptist Aumüller found that 72-year-old Cecilia Gruber suffered 8 wounds to the right side of her head, while Victoria had 9 head wounds and additional strangulation marks. 7-year-old Cecilia Gabriel had a smashed jaw and a slit throat, indicating she fought for her life, pulling out clumps of her own hair before she died. Andreas was struck so hard with the mattock that the blade tore through his carotid artery. In the house, Maria Baumgartner's skull was split open and baby Joseph's skull was crushed. Each killing was deliberate and devastating. After the murders, the killer did not flee immediately. Evidence suggested someone remained on the farm for days, tending to the cattle, feeding the dog, and even cooking meals in the kitchen. Neighbors later testified that smoke rose from the farmhouse chimney during the weekend and that the Grubers' livestock appeared fed. On April 1st, 2 coffee sellers knocked on the door. Getting no answer, they walked around the yard but left when they saw nothing amiss. Over the next 3 days, the Grubers missed church services, and young Cecilia's school noted her unexplained absence. The family dog barked incessantly from inside the barn and drew the attention of locals, but no one investigated further. By Tuesday, 4th April 1922, the silence at Hinterkaifeck alarmed neighbors. Local mechanic Albert Hoffner visited to repair the farm's engine but found no one home and heard only animals and the barking dog. That afternoon, Andreas' neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer sent his teenage son and stepson to check on the Grubers. They saw no one and returned. Concerned, Schlittenbauer enlisted his friends Michael Pohl and Jakob Siegel and went to the farm himself. Entering the barn, the men encountered a horrific sight. Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia lay dead, their bodies stacked and partly covered with hay. Schlittenbauer then went into the house and found Maria Baumgartner and Josef slain in their beds. The men alerted authorities immediately. Inspector Georg Reingruber of the Munich police led the investigation. Autopsies were performed in the barn, and the examiner confirmed that a mattock was the murder weapon. Investigators noted unusual details at the crime scene. The kitchen table held a plate of uneaten food and a bowl of bloody water, suggesting the killer had washed up. A calendar on the wall still displayed 1st to April 1922, implying someone had torn off the March 31st page after the murders. 2 cigarette butts were found in the attic, indicating that someone had waited there before the attack. Items were moved around the farm. Bodies had been covered with hay and a wooden door, showing a macabre attempt at concealment. Yet there were no signs of robbery. Money and valuables remained untouched. And the only missing items were the house key and the murder weapon, which was later found hidden in the feed trough. The police interviewed neighbors and relatives, but found little solid evidence. They learned that the previous maid had quit because of footsteps in the attic and that Andreas had recently complained about missing keys and newspaper deliveries. Forensic capabilities at the time were limited, and the crime scene had been contaminated by curious townspeople who wandered through the house before investigators arrived. Despite interrogating dozens of vagrants, craftsmen, and local residents, the authorities could not identify a perpetrator and ultimately filed the case as unsolved. Over the years, numerous suspects have been proposed, but none has been conclusively linked to the murders. The most prominent was Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor who discovered the bodies. Schlittenbauer had once been romantically involved with Victoria and was rumored to be Joseph's biological father. Witnesses noted that during the search, he handled the bodies and moved through the house with unusual familiarity, leading some to speculate he was looking for the hidden murder weapon. However, there was no direct evidence against him, and he sued those who accused him of involvement. Another theory pointed to vagrants or traveling craftsmen. Footprints leading from the forest to the machine room door and cigarette butts in the attic supported the idea that someone had hidden on the property. A third theory implicated Victoria's ex-husband, Carl Gabriel, who was believed to have died in World War I. Some locals thought he had survived, returned from the front, and murdered the family in a rage. Others suspected a serial killer. At the time, similar axe murders occurred across Germany and the United States. Yet none of these theories was confirmed. The brutality of the Hinterkaifeck murders and the absence of a culprit unsettled Bavaria. Hundreds of mourners attended the victims' funeral, where their skulls were removed for study and later lost during World War II. In 1923, the farm buildings were demolished, but the foundation remained as a chilling reminder. A memorial stone now marks the victims' graves. The killings inspired ghost stories and cautionary tales. Some locals swore that the farm was haunted, while others believed the murderer had been someone the family trusted. Despite advances in forensic science, the case remains unsolved, and the identity and motive of the killer continue to elude investigators. The Hinterkaifeck murders illustrate how isolation and secrecy can allow horrific crimes to occur without immediate detection. They show the vulnerability of rural families in the early 20th century, the limitations of early police work, and the terror inflicted by a killer who seemed at home among his victims. The story is not widely known, yet the details, luring victims one by one, striking them with a mattock, covering the bodies in hay and living among them for days, make it one of the most violent and tragic farm murders ever recorded. The remaining clues raise questions about trust, suspicion, and the darkness that can hide behind a facade of everyday life. Until an answer is found, Hinterkaifeck will remain a haunting riddle, a testament to unsolved evil and the fragility of human existence. Your support means everything. A quick like and subscribe goes a long way in helping us share more true crime stories with you. See you on our next video.